All right, you guys, this is it. This is the last thing you're going to learn this year, and hopefully you'll understand it by the time we get done. It's a little bit more complicated than what we've been doing with factoring so far. I don't know how many of you have ever seen factor by grouping. I think it's really cool. I love doing these. So there's two parts to finding your factor by grouping answer. First is finding a greatest common factor, and then factoring it out and writing a leftovers. Then, at the end, your answer should also be written as a greatest common factor and a leftovers. Now, if you guys don't know what a greatest common factor is, that just means something that can divide, like a constant, a number, and a variable out of something. Leftovers is what you get when you do that division. All right, so the first thing you do with these is notice that there's 4 terms. So I'm going to split it in half. I'm going to look at the first couple terms. And I'm going to say, yeah, I think I like these. I know that there's definitely a greatest common factor, and 15 and 10, there's a greatest common factor. There's something else in a variable. I think I'm set with this. You usually want to look at this first. There's a reason for this, which you're going to see in the other couple of examples. All right, so greatest common factor. 6 and 4 can both be divided by 2 because they're even. X squared and xb both have an x in common. Only one x. X squared is bigger than x to the first. I always take the smaller of this. Okay, greatest common factor done. Leftovers. 6 divided by 2 is 3. X squared divided by x is x. Remember when we did subtracting of exponents, I'm going to factor it out. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X's are going to cancel out or cross out, and I'm left with a b. Now I'm going to copy this sign down as a plus, and I say, okay, 15 and 10, they both divide by 5, and there's a y in common. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Crossing out the y's is x. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Crossing out the y's, I'm left with b. Okay, this is exactly what I want to have happen. I want these two parentheses to have the same term in them. That's the greatest common factor of my answer part. So my final answer now is 3x plus 2b. And then the leftovers, 2x and 5y. And yay, it's factored. It wasn't too hard. It's not overly difficult. It's just kind of long. Another way that I show people how to do this, the 3x plus 2b, once I know that's what's in the parentheses, I can like cross it out. And let me actually cross it out. And then I can see what my leftovers are, and they go into this parenthesis. All right. I'm going to look at these two. I'm going to split them down the middle. And I'm going to say, okay, this doesn't look too bad. There's an A and a C in here, and there's a B in this one. But you know what? I don't like these minus signs here. I am going to rewrite this one just because I don't like the way it looks. Minus signs or negative signs usually go at the end. So I'm going to flip-flop these two terms around and start the problem again. A squared BC plus AB squared minus BD minus ACD. And I'm just going to say, okay, we're going to split it down the middle right there. So let's say these both have an A and a B. A squared divided by A is A. Cross out the B, and I'm left with C. A crosses out. B squared divided by B is B. So I have AC plus B. Now I'm going to write this term down, this negative. Almost always when there's a negative here, you're going to put that negative there. Sometimes you don't want to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to start out with these two. So they both have a D in common. Okay, so crossing out the D and the negative is technically what I'm doing here. I'm left with a positive B. Crossing out the negative, I'm left with positive. Crossing out the D, I'm left with AC. Okay. Now, when you look at these AC plus B and B plus AC, are they really the same? They are. It doesn't matter the order of these, as long as these are not subtraction signs in here, you're good to go. So my final answer then is AC plus B or B plus AC. It doesn't matter which one. Those are my greatest common factors. And I left over AB minus D. All right, a little bit harder. Usually when you see factor by grouping, the coefficients are more difficult. So they're larger. So we learned a long time ago about factor trees. Yay, factor trees. So I'm not going to factor tree 42, but this is really what I'm going to do. 42 is 6 times 7, and 6 is 2 times 3. So you can factor tree this and do this. This is what I would get. 98 is 2 times 49, and 49 is 7 times 7. Okay, here's how I figure out my greatest common factor. 2 and 7. 2 times 7 is what I'm going to factor out of these, which is 14. Now I'm going to go back and look at my variables, because notice I didn't put my variables here. A. And I say, oh my god, I need a calculator. What's 42 divided by 14? No, you don't. Look over here. 3. Cross out the A's, and I get a B. Keep the minus sign, because it's not it's a negative 98 that you're dividing by a positive 14. Coming back over here, when I cross out that 14, doesn't matter which 7 you use, I got a 7 left over. And then the A crosses out. Okay, 3B plus 7. Sorry, I didn't draw my division line here. I'm going to put a plus sign here. Let me fix that. Plus sign here. And 3B and 7. Now you're like, oh crud, I don't know. 3 and 7, they don't divide by anything. They don't factor tree. Well, they do. They divide by a 1. And what do you get if you divide them by 1? You get exactly what's there. 3B minus 7. Okay, so now magically 3B minus 7 is my greatest common factor. Hooray! So there was a purpose to that 3B minus 7 not having a greatest common factor. But I need to remind myself to put that 1 there, otherwise I won't know what my leftovers are. When you write this, there should always be 2 terms in that leftover part. So if I didn't put this 1 here, it would just be 14A, and that wouldn't work. So 14A plus 1 is my second part. Okay, so let me stop really quickly. When I have factored these, I should be able to go back through and FOIL and get this polynomial back. So 6x squared, 15xy, 6x squared, 15xy, 4bx, 4bx or xb, and then 10by. So the reason I said this 1 is so important, if I had just written this as 14, and I distribute a 14a through here, I get my 14 times 3, which is 42ab, and I get 14 times 7, which is 98a, but I don't get anything else. So I got to put that 1 on there, because now I got to distribute that through there. All right, one more. So all of these have great big numbers on them, and I'm also going to rearrange that, because you know what? 35 and 65, I know they're both divisible by 5. 28 and 52, I think I can work with that a little bit differently. So let's do this. 28x squared minus 52xz plus 35xy minus 65yz. Even as I'm saying this, I kind of like these better. So the reason I did that again is really just because I don't like 28 and 35 right off the bat. They don't even sound like they have anything in common, and I'm sure they do, but that's okay. All right, 28 is 4 times 7. 4 is 2 times 2 times 7. 52 is 2 times 26, so 26 is 2 times 13. 35 is 5 times 7. And 65 is 5 times 13. Look how pretty those are. Now that I did this, I can see that 52 and 65, the way it was written, would have worked, that they're both a factor of 13, but you know, I don't know my 13 times tables off the top of my head. So let's go back and factor this thing now. So 28 and 52, if I come back over here, they both have a 4. That comes out. And an x. And I'm left with 7x minus 13z. Remember, go back over here where I wrote that 4 crossed them out. I've got a 7 and a 13. All right, now I get to the second part. 35 and 65 both have 5 in common, just like we said. They both have a z. Or excuse me, they both have a y. I'm looking at the wrong part of the problem, sorry. They both have a y. So if I take those off, I'm left with 7x minus 13z. And as typical of Brockmeyer's writing, she ran out of room, but I can still see this. 7x minus 13z is the greatest common factor. Getting rid of those now, I have 4x minus 5y. I know this was a really long video and this is fairly difficult to understand at first. Hopefully the first practice worksheet will help you to figure out exactly what's going on, and then by the time you get to the last assignment, it won't be so bad. But of course, always ask me for help if you need it. Good luck.